Hi guys, welcome back to another video. If you don't know who I am, my name is Bree, and today we're going to be going over my all-time favorite art supplies. So I actually went to my patrons. I had like 3 different YouTube video ideas and I wrote them out and made them vote in a poll, and this is the one that won. I'm actually kind of surprised. So before we get started, I just want to give like a small disclaimer. Don't feel obligated to like buy any of this stuff. These are just my personal favorites. The art supplies do not make the artist. That's something that I learned like really quickly when I first started trying to be a better artist. I was kind of chasing art supplies in a way to be a better artist, when really like that was not the approach I should have taken. I should have just like gotten a couple things and practiced. Granted, I did do it like pretty slowly. I've gotten all of these supplies over a period of like 4 years. I just know that when I see videos like this, I'm often tempted to buy what the artist has so that I can make art like the artist and as skilled as the artist, but that's just like not how it works. I've seen artists way more talented than me use like dollar store supplies and create better art than I ever could. You know what I mean? So my biggest advice would just to be to start small, buy a tube of paint here and there. You don't need to buy like a whole set or anything like that. All right, so the first art supply I want to cover is paint. So I am definitely like a mixed media artist. I do not stick with one medium, whether it's paint or markers or colored pencils or different types of paint. I switch it up like a lot. So I'm gonna go over like all the different types of paint and my favorite brands for each one. The first paint I would like to start with is the one that I've been using the most frequently lately, and that is gonna be watercolors. So this has easily been my favorite watercolor palette that I've ever had. I think this is only like my 3rd palette, so it's not like I've had a ton, but this one by far exceeds all of the other ones I have tried. So this is the Winsor & Newton watercolor palette. I believe there's about like 45 different pans in here. A couple of them are the same color, but for the most part, they're all different. It's also really nice because you can detach this bottom part that folds out, so you can have your little paint palette separate. Same thing with the top comes off. So if you put paint on it, you don't have to risk getting water on the rest. You can just take it off. So that is really nice, but honestly, the main thing is the actual paint. I've never had colors quite these beautiful from watercolor. There's kind of every color that I could want here, which is really nice. I don't have to like stray and get like a tube of paint to fill in what isn't here. I feel like it's a good collection of colors. The paint is really, really nice. It goes on so smooth, but there's still like that nice watercolor texture that just like comes really easily when you use it. And yeah, basically since I picked up this thing, I have not set it down and I've been using it a few times a week. Now this is pretty expensive. I did get it on like Amazon Prime Day or something a few months ago because it was half off, so I got it for like 60 bucks. It's normally like 120, which I understand is a lot of money. Hi guys, I'm editing right now and I just looked up how much the watercolor palette is on Amazon right now, and it's listed at the price that I bought it for when it was half off. So I don't know if Amazon like scammed me on Prime Day by saying like, oh, it's normally 120, but you can get it for 61, but it's actually 61 normally. Or maybe they just like changed the price. I don't know, but it's $60. I mean, this is gonna last me for years and years, so I'm not too concerned about it. And if there's certain colors that you use, you can just replace the singular thing. So yes, I've been using this a ton. This is like my holy grail art supply right now. Packs down pretty small. All right, I'm just like pulling my stuff out of drawers now. So the other type of paint that I use after watercolor the most would be gouache paint. There's generally 2 different types of gouache paint that people talk about. There's just like the regular gouache paint that kind of acts as like kind of like a mix between acrylic paint and watercolor. And then there's also acrylic gouache, which acts more like acrylic paint. So this is gonna be like permanent. If you wet it, it's not gonna come back up like bees will. Gouache is really, really fun. It gives you like really nice textures, and you can also get some opacity that you can't get with something like watercolors. So my favorite gouache brand is Winsor & Newton. I love these so much. I think I bought like a small gouache set from like Michael's or somewhere. I think it was like Michael's brand, and I didn't really like it at all. The paint was just kind of like chunky and I wasn't getting the textures I wanted. But then as soon as I bought one of these Winsor & Newton ones, I became obsessed with gouache. So these are really good. I don't even have that many colors yet, but I love using them. Now, if we're talking about acrylic gouache, I do feel like most artists use this brand. Probably nothing too interesting, but I use the Holbein acrylic gouache. They come in really nice colors and they just like layer so nicely. These are just like really, really nice paints. Also a little bit expensive, but I just buy one tube at a time whenever I have a few extra dollars. I would say I use these almost equally. It just kind of depends on what type of project I'm doing. If you've seen the clay earrings I've made in the past, I've used these acrylic gouache paints for that. I have acrylic paint, regular acrylic, but I just find these like a lot more fun. The colors are a lot better out of the tube, in my opinion, for like fun, vibrant things. So that's what I use. All right, jumping right into acrylic paint. This is the type of paint that I use the least now, but when I first started like really being serious about working on my art, I like only used acrylic paint, but that was just because like I didn't really know about the other types of paint as much. I was super into acrylic paint. So my favorite brand are these golden paints. Specifically, I really like the open variety. These are really slow drying acrylics, so they almost act a little bit closer towards like an oil paint, because they do take like quite a bit to dry out, so you have a lot more time to like blend your colors. They're really smooth. I just really like them. Once again, the colors are really beautiful, and you just can't really go wrong with these. Those often also come with a like paint thinner that you can use to make them even more thin. My first ever set from Golden Paints was this. It just says 10 professional fluid acrylics. These were super duper nice to begin with. I love these paints. They're pretty much like all empty. When I was really working on my art practice in 2019 and 2020, I was living out of like a camper van. I was doing most of my painting outside. I'll include some pictures of like some stuff I would do. But yeah, the open, slow drying acrylics, super duper nice if you're painting outside or somewhere in like a dry environment. These are amazing. I will say I don't really use acrylic paint as much as I used to, but I still use them, and I've actually been working on an acrylic paint project this week, and I was very happy to have the open golden paints. All right, that's it for paint. I am not an oil painter, at least not yet. Okay, now I want to talk about the 3 different palettes that I use to mix my paint. So if I'm using watercolor, like I said before, I'll usually just use the like palette that's in the watercolor thing, in the little clamshell. But if I'm using any other type of paint, I will use one of these palettes. The one that I use most frequently is this ceramic palette. I definitely bought this because I wanted the Sugar House ceramic one, but it was way too expensive for me. So I just found a different ceramic palette on like Etsy or something. Honestly, I don't really remember where I bought this. I think it was Etsy. But yeah, this was like $15 or something, and I use it all the time. I love it. I kind of wish there was a section that was like a little bit bigger than this so I could do a little bit more mixing, but for now, this is great. The other palette that I use a lot is this Mijello paint palette. I think it's one of the like peel off acrylic paint palettes. I've used acrylic gouache on this, and I feel like it doesn't peel off very well. I don't know if regular acrylic paint does a better job, but I honestly usually just like scrape it off or wash it off. This is nice just for like doing a lot of mixing. All right, and now for my fancy palette. Once again, I used this a lot when I was painting outside. This is the Masterson's Stay Wet Handy Palette. I freaking love this thing. So I started painting on like Friday last week. I actually don't remember what day it was, but like late last week, I used this palette. All of the paint is still very wet, so that's super nice. I don't have to like remix my colors For my current painting, I can just use this. Now the way that this works is that there is a sponge underneath, and then you get a bunch of these little pieces of paper. I think it comes with like 30 in the pack. So what you do is you just like boil some water and pour it over the paper, let it sit for like 5 minutes. I think it says to use a microwave, but I don't have a microwave, so I just boil water. One time I like opened up one of these after not using it for like 2 months, and the paint was still wet. I genuinely don't know how that's possible, and that's when I really decided that this thing, amazing. Also, you can even like reuse the paper sometimes. I'll just like flip it around, use the back side. Still works. So those 30 sheets can be more like 60. Very nice. This saved my life when I'd be painting outside. Otherwise, like a gust of wind would come and my regular paint palette, the paint would just be like drying constantly. And I would just be like wasting time adding a bunch of water to it and like changing the texture and consistency of the paint. Don't need to do that anymore with this. Like I said, it comes with a pack of a bunch of paper. It also comes with extra sponges. I'm still on my first sponge and I bought this thing in like 2020, so we're going strong. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a favorite gesso. I rarely use gesso. I don't really paint on canvases that often or things that need gesso, but I do have some. It's about half empty and it is from Art Alternatives. I really don't know if this is a good gesso or not, but it works for me. All right, now that we've gone over paint and paint palettes, I wanna talk about paintbrushes. I've got a bunch of paintbrushes. I would say my advice to greener artists would be to buy a pack of pretty cheap paintbrushes, maybe like cheap to mid-range. You don't want the bristles to be falling out into your paint. I would say if the bristles are like actively falling out into your paint, it's too cheap. Now, if you can find some cheap paintbrushes that don't lose their bristles, great. Paintbrushes are really expensive. It's actually like so sad how expensive they are. Try and find an affordable pack of paintbrushes just so you have like a big variety of paintbrushes so you can kind of learn what you like. Then I would think very closely about investing in like 2-3 nicer paintbrushes. Now these things are freaking expensive. Like this is probably like 20 bucks just for this like small paintbrush. I have 3 Princeton paintbrushes that I really like. These 2 are easily my favorite. They are the Princeton Aqua Elite brush. So I've got a 12 and a 6 size. These sizes work pretty well for me. I think now that I'm more serious about my art practice, maybe like every 6 months to a year, I will just start buying another Princeton Aqua Elite paintbrush to fill in the gaps. All right, now I'm gonna talk about sketchbooks and just like paper in general. These are my recent finished sketchbooks. All 4 of them are Strathmore mixed media sketchbooks. I will put the sizes on here. Woo! I like both of these sizes, honestly. I've had a lot of fun with these. I think I first heard about them from Lee Ellickson. I just decided to try one out. I loved it. It's just like a really good mixed media sketchbook. You can't really go wrong. I like how it feels on the outside. My cats love scratching the outside. I don't know if you can tell here, but they have scratched this like crazy. Now my current sketchbooks, I have a Strathmore mixed media sketchbook. I've got like this tiny travel one that I've just started using. And then I have a big drawing sketchbook. This is just like regular paper. It doesn't take wet media. My workflow with making art is to always have 2 sketchbooks at one time. One is a mixed media sketchbook that I can paint in and just like make kind of slightly nicer stuff in. And then I have my ugly sketchbook. Now I first learned about ugly sketchbooks from Fran, and I remember when she was talking about her ugly sketchbook, she just called it like her ugly bastard sketchbook or something like that. I think it's really important to have an ugly sketchbook, something that like you're not afraid of messing up, something that you can really like scribble in and no one has to see it. You can play around. Sometimes I'll write in it and like design different products. Other times I'll just like straight up sketch. This is also the sketchbook I use to go to figure drawing class because I tend to use like a lot of pages while I'm there. And it's nice just not really having to worry about it. Like I can just flip the page. I think this whole thing was like $11 and it's got a lot of pages in it. So I don't really feel bad about just like going crazy with this thing. And I think that's really important. I feel like everyone should have an ugly sketchbook. And this is from Blick. It is a Blick Studio hardbound sketchbook. I think it's 8.5 by 11. This thing was really affordable. I'm probably just gonna rebuy the same one. I'm really close to finishing. Sometimes I don't want to work small, I just want to like scribble. This is a good like laying on the couch sketchbook. I am really close to finishing my Strathmore mixed media sketchbook. I might play around with getting a different brand of sketchbooks this time. I really want something that's like moleskin sized so that when I open up the spread, I can scan it all in one piece. Because for this sketchbook, like only one side will be able to be scanned at a time. Okay, now I'm gonna talk about just like loose paper. I really like this Strathmore watercolor paper. It is 11 by 15. I feel like this is a decent size for me. If I want something slightly smaller, I'll use this, or I'll just like cut one of these up to be smaller. So yeah, it just comes in like a block and the pages are all stuck together. So you can just use like a palette knife or something to like peel the pages apart. So yeah, this is my favorite painting paper that I use. And I've got a whole brand new fresh one of these for when this one's over. So I'm just gonna keep rebuying these. All right, now I wanna talk about pens, pencils, and erasers. All right, so I very rarely use a graphite pencil for drawing. I do have a couple charcoal pencils that I use for figure drawing class, but even then I don't really like to use these because if I'm using it in my sketchbook, if I close the page, it's just gonna like transfer everywhere and I'm not gonna be able to like really look back on my drawing as much. So I don't really like using graphite or charcoal that much. What I do use for almost all of my sketches is the Prismacolor Col Erase pencil. It's basically just like a muted color pencil that you can erase for the most part. I don't like using graphite under a painting because the graphite will like smear. The paint can get kind of like muddy and grayed down. These don't do that, and I think it kind of adds like a nice little element. Similarly, for colored pencils, I really like Prismacolor color pencils. I just find that they work really well. The colors are really nice, they're nice and soft. I have heard from Furry Little Peach that they like bloom, so they will change colors over time. For my purposes, they work wonderfully. My boyfriend bought me like a 72 pack for my birthday, and I've just been like filling in random colors as I use them, and there's like a couple colors I didn't get that I wanted with the pack, so I've got a bunch of these and I use them like almost every day. All right, now I'm gonna go over pens. Now probably my favorite colored pen to draw with is the Lei pen. They're actually made in Japan, but they are called Lei pen. I really like these. I like the little nib. I think it works really well. It's almost like a felt tip nib, but it's not. I don't really know what you'd call it, honestly, but these are super duper nice. I love the colors that they come in. They're actually like pretty affordable. They're really skinny, so they don't take up a bunch of space in my pencil pouch, which I like. For a black pen, I really love the Precise V5 rolling ball pen. This one is an extra fine. I use extra fine and fine. These are super nice to draw with. I like them a lot. I feel like you can get a lot of texture with them because they're so fine. Not waterproof or anything like that, so I wouldn't paint over it, but love these. For a white pen for doing like some accents, like if I don't want to bring out like a white tube of paint to just like fix up a little white part, I'll use this Uniball Signo Broad white pen. I don't think this thing's like amazing. Sometimes it gets kind of like, I don't know, like chunky or it's hard to get it going, but I do use it pretty frequently. Pentel Sign Pen, I do kind of like this thing. It is like a felt tip nib. I don't know, I feel like it dried out kind of fast, so that's kind of why I'm not like super for it. When I was using it, I really liked it. I feel like that's all the pens that I like actually use regularly. I do use like acrylic pens on occasion. I really don't use these that often, but the Uni Poscos are really great. They're really fun. I kind of wish I had a pencil sharpener that had like a bigger capacity for the shavings, because often I'm like out and about and these don't really hold a lot of shavings, so I have to find like a trash, or sometimes I'll just like dump them in like my purse or my pencil pouch because I don't know what to do with it. Yeah, use whatever pencil sharpener you want. I will say for erasers, I have a strong preference for a black eraser. I find that white erasers, if you're like bringing up color on one drawing and then later on you like use it again, sometimes the color will transfer. With a black eraser, that doesn't really ever happen. My white eraser, I feel like after I use it, sometimes I have to like go on each side and get rid of the color so that the color doesn't transfer. I don't know if that really makes sense. Yep, very exciting stuff. All right, paint water cups. This isn't like super important, like you could literally use a mug and call it good, but over the years I've collected my favorite water cups, so I will show you what I've got here. So this one is really nice. Actually, my boyfriend bought me this one after we were like on a hike and I brought a jar of water and we were like scrambling over some rocks and my backpack hit the rock and my glass jar full of water just like shattered and it was a mess and I obviously had to clean it up and everything. So maybe don't use glass if you're going outside. Seemed obvious, of course, but I didn't have anything else, so I was using a glass jar from the thrift store. But this thing is really nice. It has a cap, and then it's got the 3 little levers, so you can actually get like a really tight seal. Super nice. This thing will not leak, and it has a little handle. Another one that I use is this collapsible little guy with like the tulip scallop edge. This is really nice as you're actively painting. You can just leave your brush just right on top on the scallops and you don't have to worry about like leaving them in the water and then they get bent. All right, and then the third one I use is this big guy that I got from a thrift store. If I'm going pretty casual, I'll just use these two. So this one will be like my dirty water and this one will be like my rinser. Lately, I've actually been using 3 just because I don't know, I really don't like my paints getting muddied from the color and I don't like having to get up and like interrupt myself while I'm painting, just like switch over the water a bunch. So I typically use 3. I don't know if other people use that, maybe it's like super extra, but this is what I use. All right, one other art supply that I would like to talk about is one that I got super recently. I don't really know why I'm mentioning this because it's not like a favorite, but I did just get it and I feel like I'm having a lot of fun with them, so maybe it will become a favorite. So that is the Ohuhu art markers. These things do bleed through your paper like crazy, but that's what I'm using this like tiny mini sketchbook for. So I'll kind of just use like one page, flip it, one page, flip it, so that the back side I don't have to draw on if I don't want to. It's just been like a fun little mini art practice that I've been doing. I definitely impulse bought these. Like, did not need to buy 100 of them. Do as I say, not as I do. They were on sale, but regardless, I'm having fun with them, okay? All right, the last art supply that I really want to mention is a tabletop easel. So I don't really have the space or the money to buy a standing easel, but I've been using this tabletop one for like 3 years or something, and I've recently been using it a lot more to paint. It's really nice not hunching over and just being able to like whoop, 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 whoop. I don't know if I would like specifically recommend this one. There's maybe better ones out there. I feel like a taller one would have been nice. I have to use something rigid on the back when I use like my tall 11 by 15 paper. It has like a little drawer in it. I never use the drawer though. And it doesn't go back together very easily, like the drawer doesn't slide in super nicely. I'm looking around for like a brand or something and I don't see anything. I'm pretty sure I bought this from Michaels though. I did see that Megan Wang just bought one, I think from like Blick or something, and it looks a lot nicer. If I knew what I knew now, I'd probably buy that one instead. I have a feeling this one was a lot cheaper though. All right, you guys, so the last category we're gonna talk about is fiber art. So I'm gonna go over my 3 favorite types of acrylic yarn. Acrylic yarn is normally what I use for my like rug tufting projects. I used to often use a mix of acrylic yarn and wool, but that got to be pretty expensive and I didn't really feel like the difference was enough to be like worth the difference in money, because wool does get really expensive. As far as acrylic yarn, I have used so many acrylic yarns. I've used like, I swear to God, almost every option at Michaels and at Joann Fabrics. I have tried a lot. I have bought hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of yarn in the past 2 years. So I've kind of explored a lot of different options. My favorite brand of acrylic yarn is the Craft Smart Value yarn from Michaels. I don't have any of that yarn that still has like the circular tag on it left, because I do like rewind all my yarn when I get it. So I'll put a picture here. That's my number one. It's affordable and it's like thick. The colors are nice. If they have the color I'm looking for, I will always buy the Craft Smart value yarn. Now my second favorite is probably Red Heart Super Saver yarn. I feel like that yarn's not quite as soft, but it is affordable and like decent quality. And then I think right behind the Red Heart Super Saver one, I'd probably rank the like Big Twist value yarn from Joann Fabrics. I do feel like this stuff is like a little bit thinner than the Craft Smart stuff, but they do have some nice colors. Like when I was making my Purple Tigers, I would mainly buy this one. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, I kind of switched from buying my yarn from Joann's to buying it at Michael's. Stupidly, I didn't really realize that Michael's has like such a good rewards program. So since I was spending so much money on yarn, it's like stupid to not get the vouchers and stuff that they give you. I definitely started saving money on yarn when I started buying it from Michael's instead of Joann Fabrics. I've also tried buying it online too, but I just really like to see like what the shade actually looks like. For personal projects, I really like using like Line brand yarn. I feel like that stuff is really nice quality. I can't really afford to use that for like all my rugs and stuff though, so I don't. The tufting gun that I use, people ask me a lot. Wow, it's full of fibers right now. I need to clean it. Anyway, this is the cut pile gun from Tuft the World, or like tuftinggun.com. This is what I've used throughout the entirety of making rugs. Besides when I first started, I would use a punch needle. That shit takes forever. So in order to go faster, I got the cut pile gun. I kind of wish I had a loop pile gun, but I don't know if I'm like as into making rugs as I was before, so I don't want to like invest another $100 to $200 on another gun. I'm kind of trying to move away from rugs. So yeah, but this is what I use. If you want to make and sell rugs, I really feel like how you back the rugs is almost just as important as what the front looks like. I find that people really care about what the back looks like as well. I like to put little D-ring hooks on them. I can insert a photo here because I don't want to go grab them. But as far as like actually putting fabric on the back, I get a big roll of this gray, sorry, there's like leaves and tape. I get this big roll of this like dark gray premium felt from Joann Fabrics. The regular felt versus the premium, I feel like is a pretty big difference. When you're making rugs, you're like putting a bunch of glue on the back and then you're like hot gluing this to the back. And if you're using just like regular felt that you can like almost see through, you'll be able to like feel the glue and it's just not as nice. I don't know, it's like really obvious the difference. So I always go with the premium felt. Yeah, and I usually go with this gray color. I don't know if I'd ever use a black. I feel like the fibers from the front get to the back sometimes. And black, you just like, it's really obvious when you can see the little fibers. So the gray is really nice. I don't know how many people actually care about like rug tufting and like rug making, but if you would like to see a video about how I do the whole backing process, let me know. I've been thinking about making a video just because it took me like a year to land on the way that I do it now. And I feel like there just wasn't like a ton of information out there when I was trying to figure it out. I don't know if people are still interested in rugs, but if you want to know, let me know and I'll make a video. All right, one other thing I should probably talk about when it comes to making rugs is scissors. I tend to really just like Fiskars brand scissors. They have a left and a right-handed scissors. I am left-handed, so I actually use that one more often. This one was just laying around, so that's why I grabbed it, but they're pretty affordable. They're like less than $10 and you can just keep resharpening them. They work really well. I do use some of this like, I don't know what it's called, like orthopedic tape. I don't really know what you call it. It's like the squishy, sticky tape that you use for like injuries and stuff. Like it's usually in like a first aid kit, but I just use it on my scissors because I get a lot of hot spots. If you make rugs, you're gonna be doing this like 1,000 times for every rug. So you wanna make sure it's really comfy. Because when I make rugs, I usually make like 8 at a time. So I'll spend all week just cutting. And then by the end of the week, I feel like I'm gonna die because my wrists are gonna fall off. All right, you guys, I think I went over pretty much everything. If there's anything that like I didn't mention that you can think of, just write it in the comments and I'll either reply to you directly or I'll just like include the information in my next video. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this shed some light on the type of art products that are available out there. At the very least, I hope this video was just like entertaining to watch, maybe kept you some company. I really like hearing what other people use. If you have like a distinct favorite art supply, please let me know in the comments what it is, because I really want to know. And I would also like to give a special little thanks to my patrons. You guys are so sweet. I can't believe the support I have on Patreon for being like a smaller creator. I have like 37 patrons or something at this point, which is way more than I ever anticipated having. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And I actually like really appreciate the fact that I can go to my patrons for some input and just for like, I don't know, just like another person to talk to be like, hey, what should I make next? All right, I think that's it for now. So I will see you guys in the next video.